Tiechidowa Ustopia XPLA and MURCF is the day everyone around you penny says as they built an entire narrative around your silence. And it's about to KL la pieza. Nobody warned them what happens when you stop EXPLANG yourself. You used to explain yourself. Every move, every decision, every late night, every closed door, every silence. You used to hand it over like a confession, like you owed someone a report on your own existence. Not anymore. Something shifted. Quietly. No announcement. No speech. One day you just stopped. And that's the day they should have been afraid. Because explaining yourself was never about honesty. It was about control. Every time you justified your choices, you handed someone a leash. You let them grade your life like it was their homework to mark. And you called it being respectful. You called it being humble. You called it being a good person. It was none of that. It was permission. You were asking permission to exist on your own terms. And they were happy to keep collecting the toll. The moment you go quiet, the whole system breaks. They don't know what to do with a person who doesn't defend themselves anymore. Silence isn't weakness to them. Silence is data they can't process. Silence is a locked door they don't have the key to. And people who are used to controlling you through your own explanations, they panic in front of locked doors. Watch what happens. The questions get sharper. Why are you being like this? What's going on with you? You've changed. As if change is an accusation. As if growth is betrayal. As if the version of you that used to explain everything was the only version they were ever willing to accept. That version is dead now. And you didn't kill it out of anger. You killed it out of exhaustion. You killed it the night you realized that no explanation was ever good enough. That you could justify yourself for hours, and they'd still find a crack. Still find a but. Still twist your own words back at you like evidence in a trial you never agreed to stand in. So you stopped showing up to that trial. You stopped submitting evidence for a verdict that was already written before you opened your mouth. That's the moment everything changes. Not because the world around you transforms, but because you do. The noise doesn't stop. The opinions don't stop. The judgment doesn't stop. What stops is your participation in it. And that's the most dangerous thing a person can do to people who built their identity around having power over you. Think about it. Every relationship where you over-explain is a relationship with a hidden hierarchy. Someone above, someone below. Someone interrogating, someone confessing. You don't see it at first because it's wrapped in soft language. I just want to understand you. I just want to know why. But understanding was never the goal. Control was. If they truly wanted to understand, they would have listened the first 10 times you explained it. They didn't listen, they collected. They collected your words to use later. Your own explanations, weaponized. Your own vulnerability, stored in a file labeled ammunition. That's what over-explaining does. It arms the very people who are least interested in your well-being. So you go silent, not cold, not cruel. Just done. Done auditioning for approval you were never going to receive anyway. Done performing remorse for choices that were never wrong. Done shrinking your own life down into bite-sized justifications so someone else could feel comfortable with your growth. The people who truly love you don't need a deposition. They just need you. And the ones who do need a deposition, let them sit with the silence. Let them fill it with their own anxiety. Let them invent theories, because they will. People always invent stories to fill gaps they can't control. That's fine. Let them write fiction about you. Fiction says more about the author than the subject. You're not in the business of correcting fiction anymore. You used to be. You used to chase down every rumor, every misunderstanding, every twisted version of your story, and you'd fight to set the record straight. You'd lose sleep over it. You'd rehearse arguments in the shower, in the car, in bed at 2 a.m., trying to find the perfect explanation that would finally make them understand. It never worked. Because the people determined to misunderstand you were never confused. They were comfortable. Confusion would have required curiosity. What they had instead was a conclusion they liked, and they weren't interested in evidence that threatened it. You can't out-argue comfort. You can only outlast it. So here's what you do instead. You build. Quietly. Relentlessly. While they're still debating who you are, you're becoming someone they won't recognize. While they're still trying to drag the old version of you into every conversation, you're 3 versions ahead, already unrecognizable, already untouchable by their outdated narrative. This is the part they never expect. They think silence means surrender. They think the absence of defense means the absence of strength. They've never met someone who chose discipline over drama, who chose evidence over emotion, who decided that the only explanation that matters is the one written in results. Results don't argue. Results don't beg to be believed. Results just arrive, undeniable, unshakable. And by the time they arrive, nobody's asking for an explanation anymore. They're asking how. They're asking what changed. They're asking, quietly, almost ashamed, if you'd be willing to tell them your secret. The secret is simple. You stopped negotiating your worth with people who were never going to pay full price. Let's talk about what silence actually costs you, because it isn't free. It costs you the comfort of being understood in real time. It costs you the warmth of instant validation. It costs you nights where you'll want to explain, want to defend, want to set the record straight, and you won't. You'll sit in that discomfort instead, because you've learned something most people never learn. Discomfort that builds you is worth more than comfort that shrinks you. This is where most people quit. Right here. Right at the edge of silence, when the urge to explain claws at your chest and every nerve in your body screams that if you just say the right words, this time they'll finally get it. They won't, not because you're not capable of explaining, because they were never capable of receiving it. There's a difference between a closed door and a broken lock. Some people are closed doors. Give them time, knock differently, and eventually they'll open. Other people are broken locks. No matter what key you bring, no matter how perfectly you explain yourself, the mechanism inside them was never built to let you in. You have spent years trying to pick broken locks with words. Stop. Save your words for people who actually have a working door. This is the discipline nobody talks about. Not waking up at 5. Not cold showers. Not some performative grind. The real discipline is staying silent when every cell in your body wants to defend itself. The real discipline is letting people believe whatever they want to believe about you while you keep moving, unaffected, unbothered, unexplained. And here's the part that should genuinely terrify the people who built a version of you out of misunderstanding and convenience. Your silence isn't empty. It's loaded. Every day you don't explain yourself is a day you spend on yourself instead. That hour you used to spend rehearsing your defense. Now it's spent building your next move. That energy you used to burn convincing someone of your intentions. Now it's fuel for your actual goals. You haven't lost anything by going quiet. You've redirected everything. This is why the comeback always looks sudden to everyone watching. It was never sudden. It was compounding, in private, while you let them believe the silence meant nothing. Let's go deeper. Because there's a psychological trap hidden inside the habit of over-explaining, and almost nobody sees it until it's cost them years. Over-explaining trains your nervous system to treat other people's confusion as your emergency. The second someone misunderstands you, your body floods with urgency. Heart rate spikes, thoughts race. You feel an almost physical compulsion to fix their perception of you immediately, as if their confusion is a fire, and you're the only one who can put it out. But whose fire is it really? It's theirs. It was always theirs. You just adopted it as your own because somewhere along the way, you were taught that being misunderstood was dangerous. Maybe a parent who only loved you when you justified yourself well enough. Maybe a relationship where silence was punished and explanations were the only currency that bought peace. Maybe a childhood where you learned that confusion in someone else's eyes meant you were about to lose something. Safety, approval, love. So you became fluent in self-justification. You became an expert at translating yourself into whatever language made people comfortable. And it worked for a while. It kept the peace. It kept you safe. It also kept you small. Because every time you explain yourself to someone who isn't actually listening, you confirm to your own nervous system that your worth is conditional. Conditional on being understood. Conditional on being believed. Conditional on someone else's approval rating of your internal world. The day you stop explaining yourself is the day you sever that conditioning. It feels like death the first few times. It feels like you're doing something wrong, something reckless, something that's going to cost you the relationship, the job, the reputation. Your old programming screams at you to go back, to fix it, to say one more thing, just one more explanation that might finally land. Don't. Sit in the discomfort. Let the silence stretch longer than feels safe. Watch what happens on the other side of that discomfort, because something remarkable occurs. The world doesn't end. The relationships that mattered adjust. The ones that were built entirely on your explanations collapse, because they were never built on you. They were built on your performance of you. And here's the brutal truth: nobody tells you about people who demand constant explanations. They don't actually want you to succeed in explaining yourself. If you ever fully succeeded, if you ever found the perfect words that satisfied them completely, you'd stop being useful to them. Your confusion, your need to be understood, your endless availability to justify yourself. That's the resource they were feeding on. Take it away, and you take away their power. That's why they fight so hard when you finally go quiet. That's why the silence triggers them more than any argument ever did. An argument they can win. A silence they can't even enter. You become unreadable. And unreadable people are dangerous to systems built on control, because control requires prediction, and prediction requires information, and information requires your participation. You've stopped participating. This is the version of you that walks into a room and doesn't feel the need to announce anything. Doesn't perform humility. Doesn't perform confidence either. Just exists, fully, without translation. People will call it intimidating. People will call it cold. People will call it arrogant. Let them. Their discomfort with your peace is not your problem to solve. Somewhere out there right now, someone is talking about you, building a version of you out of speculation, filling in the blanks with whatever story serves them best. And the old you would have rushed in to correct it, to manage it, to control the narrative before it spread. The new you lets it spread, lets it die on its own, the way all fiction eventually does when it isn't fed. You have bigger things to build than other people's opinions of you. This is where transformation actually lives, not in the dramatic moment everyone imagines, the speech, the breakdown, the breakthrough. It lives in the 1,000 small refusals. The refusal to explain, the refusal to defend, the refusal to shrink yourself into a shape that makes someone else comfortable. Each refusal is a brick. Stack enough of them and you've built a wall nobody saw coming. A wall between who you were and who you're becoming. And on the other side of that wall, something happens that terrifies the people who once held power over your explanations. You stop needing them to understand. Not in a bitter way, not in a cold way, in a free way. The kind of freedom that doesn't announce itself, doesn't gloat, doesn't even need anyone to notice it's there. It just is. Quiet, solid, unshakable. And from that place, everything you build hits different. Your work speaks instead of your mouth. Your results answer questions your words never could. Your presence in a room says more than any explanation you used to give at the door. People will ask, eventually, what changed? They'll ask with curiosity instead of accusation, because now you're someone worth understanding instead of someone obligated to perform understanding on command. And you'll have a choice in that moment. Explain, or let the mystery stand. You'll probably choose the mystery, because you've learned something most people never learn in a lifetime. The less you explain, the more your life speaks for itself. And nothing, no defense, no justification, no perfectly worded explanation, speaks louder than a person who simply, finally, stopped asking for permission to be who they already are. That's the day everything changes. Not because the world noticed, because you stopped needing it to.